Hi everyone, and welcome to Priority Holder. And today we'll be playing 5-color Tiamat dragons in the Explorer format. Now you may be asking yourself, why would you want to play Tiamat dragons? Well, just look at her. Come on. Tiamat is a 7-mana 7/7 flying. And when it enters battlefield, we cast it. We get to put 5 dragon cards, not named Tiamat with different names, from our deck into our hand. So it's essentially, it draws us 5 new dragons when we can cast this. Now, it has a very steep cost, but this is just an amazing card. Now, what put this on my radar? Well, I do a lot of drafting, and in the Adventures of Forgotten Realm format, I managed to draft a deck that gives like a pack 1, pick 1 Tiamat, draft around it, get a few dragons to go with it, and not only did it win a lot, it went 7 wins. It was just incredibly fun. Just such a massive creature, just a bombastic effect of grabbing so many dragons. So it was just too much fun to not play. And so decided to figure out how would I make this work and explore. So here's my attempt. In order to set up for that, the intense mana cost, we have 4 Gilded Goose, 4 Paradise Druid. Help us cast it. Also a lesser known card called Orb of Dragonkind. Now this is essentially a dragon signet, if you know Commander. This can, except it provides 2 mana of any combination of colors, only for casting or activating abilities of dragons. So that lets us filter like our white mana into like black-red to help cast something. So it's very nice. It also has a sacrifice ability to fetch a dragon card off the top of our deck. So these are our 12 cards help ramp us into and color fix us into our dragons. As far as our interaction, we have 4 Dragon Fires, also from Adventures in the Forgotten Realm set. It default damage is deals 3 damage by default to a creature or planeswalker, but you can boost that damage by revealing a dragon card from your hand or one on the battlefield that you control. So with our dragons, we can deal up to like 7 damage. So it's a very, very powerful removal spell, better than what you normally get for in red. And we also have 2 Spit Flames. I'm fond of this era of Magic, so I decided to try it. It's very thematic. I don't know how good it is. 3 mana deal 4 does not seem amazing, but we can rebuy it, so there is that recursiveness built into it. It may be better just to get something more efficient when you just look at our curve. And then the other non-dragons we have are 3 copies of Crux of Fate. Now for our deck, this is a one-sided board wipe when we choose the Destroy All Non-Dragon Creatures mode. So wipes away everything but our dragons. There's a little bit of a non-bow with our mana creatures. They get annihilated by this, so it's something to pay attention to. But anyway, that's the idea behind that. And the way I went about it, so maxed out on Tiamat, and then decided to basically build a toolbox of dragons. So I have 11 other dragons that are not Tiamat. They all have various functions. So we have Old Gnawbone, just a huge creature that can, make it so we can get lots of treasure tokens. Niv-Mizzet Parun can't be countered and has a very backbreaking, like Mystic Aurora effect, and as well as some damage dealing. Glorybringer, flying haste, and can just be a source of removal for non-dragons. We also have Goldspan, just famously strong dragon. The treasures really help vault us into like Tiamat mana as well. So Terror of the Peaks, another strong dragon that allows us to deal damage equal to a creature's powers when they enter the battlefield on our side. So another source of removal. Korvold, you can see we just have all the heavy hitter dragons. This can grow really large, draw us cards. Nicol Bolas the Ravager can flip into a planeswalker, make the opponent discard. Thunderbreak Regent shields our dragons a little bit, just makes it painful for the opponent to deal with them. Atsushi the Blazing Sky, 4 mana flying trample, and has 2 awesome death triggers. Either impulse draw or makes treasure tokens for us. And Ebon Death Dracolich, very resilient threat that can just keep coming back from the graveyard. And lastly, Gadrak the Crown-Scourge. Now, this is just a very beefy blocker and can't attack, usually, but we're trying to buy time with this deck. And beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. Really wish that was the beginning of each end step, but anyway, it is what it is. And so that's the idea, is to ramp into either a dragon or a Tiamat, refill our hand, just keep slamming dragons. That's the idea. The mana base is a bunch of green-based triomes, a couple on-color shock lands, and then a few forest-based check lands. So that's the idea. A couple Fabled Passage in there as well. And just tried to stay pretty centered in base green-red with just touching a few other colors. Now, one idea that I had when building this is, when we're playing this deck, we're often playing from behind. We're trying to cast these expensive spells, trying to make it to the late game. And I was like, well, if Tiamat is essentially, we cast it, we draw 5 cards, it'd be pretty strong to couple it with the March cycle from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And these are powerful spells that you can, have different X abilities that you can pitch on-color cards to reduce their cost. And so these could be a way for us to leverage those extra cards from Tiamat into us staying alive. Now the problem, though, is that we're mostly based red and green, and the red one is like Impulse Draw, the green one is like a really restrictive Court of Calling. They're just not super good defensive plays. The best defensive ones are March of Wretched Sorrow, which can deal damage and gain life against creatures and planeswalkers. And the white one, just a very versatile removal. So that would require changing up our suite of dragons to be more in these colors. So it's just a tough situation where I feel like mechanically it'd work really well, but color-wise they're not working well. The blue one is temporary defense. So ended up scrapping that idea and going with what we have. Let's look at the sideboard to see some things I considered. Sarkhan Fireblood is an interesting choice because its second +1 adds 2 mana of any combination of colors to cast dragons. So it could potentially let us turbo out dragons really quickly. Maybe it's worth a shot to try it out. We don't defend planeswalkers very well early on in this deck, so anyway, this is to be considered. I was considering trying the Dragon Kami Reborn. It can give protection for our dragons by make it so we get new ones, but it's just incredibly slow and not guaranteed to work, so skipped it. Dragon's Horde is another ramp source that can turn into card advantage later on. Maybe replace the Spit Flames with these? Not sure. Jaded Sellsword. How did that get in there? That's a lame dragon. Forget that one. One that didn't make the cut is Immersturm Predator. This one, it can be a pretty resilient dragon that can grow larger, and maybe is a way to unlock the Black March. I don't know, but this is one to consider. Also, this land, Temple of the Dragon Queen, potentially an untapped source of whatever color we want if we have enough dragons in hand. Anyway, there may be a way to incorporate this. Just we don't always have a dragon, and it only ever taps for one color, so it still might be good enough, though. But anyway, let's go ahead and take this deck into some games and see how strong Tiamat is. All right, so pretty nice hand. The opponent has a dragon pet on theme for us. All right, so we have a bunch of ramp. Unfortunately, don't have the turn 1 Goose, so it slows things down quite a bit. Presumably we're facing angels, and yeah, there's the angel. So Giada. Okay, so decide between double Gilded Goose or single Paradise Druid. Decide to go for the upside. If we draw an untapped land, then we could play one of our 5-drop dragons next turn. So that's why I went with double Goose there. Okay, so Giada attacks. No blocks. Okay. Do not find the untapped land. So the question is, do we play the Orb of Dragonkind, or do we play Paradise Druid? Decided to go with the Orb and play our tap land and pass. So the mana has not been working quite so well this game. Okay, Righteous Valkyrie. That's an issue. And Giada gives it a counter. So we're already in pretty big trouble right here. So on our turn decided to play. Decide that Terror of the Peaks is probably our best bet, because that allows subsequent dragons to deal damage, maybe shoot down some angels. So go ahead and cast Terror of the Peaks. Unfortunately, the mana will still be a little short next turn because the Gilded Geese are using up their food. So opponent has 4 mana, and of course it's the dreaded Collected Company. And that is insanely bad for us. A second Righteous Valkyrie vaults their life total way high, and so they get the double Anthem effect from their 2 Righteous Valkyries. So moving into triple speed here, because I played out a little bit, but we're already dead. I mean, now at best we can kill, a 5/5. So on to the next game. Okay, so hopefully things go a little better this time. Gonna start with Triome and then go on from there. So we have some ramp, and we have some of our cheaper dragons to cast. So Paradise Druid's a good draw, because that one is summoning sick. We lead with that. Okay, Hieroglyphic Illumination could be like some sort of cycling deck, likely control, especially seeing the blue-white land follow-up. I don't know what it is, but we are constantly playing control in these videos. I don't mind, though. Okay, shock that in. That allows us to play the Orb of Dragonkind, waiting for possible counterspell, and then follow up with Goose. So feeling great. Definitely no attack from the Druid. We don't want them to impact it somehow. I want to keep that hexproof going. And waiting to see what the opponent does. And they cycle Shark Typhoon. So that is somewhat of an indication that they're looking for lands. The fact that they don't even get the creature value off that. Okay, so they do find a 3rd land, and they pass. So this next spell is very likely to get countered. And so I figured Thunderbreak Regent is probably less valuable in this matchup of the 2 4-mana red dragons. So lead at that one, assuming it's going to get countered. Okay, so there's the Absorb. And that's fine. We were anticipating that. The other dragon, why it's more valuable is that of the modes it has when it dies, one of them is to create 3 treasures, which can put us into Tiamat range. So next we play the Blazing Sky, and that gets countered as well. So also fine. We know, that's what we signed up for, that in this battle that things are going to get countered. Okay, Narset. Let's see, Narset minuses. Let's see what do they find. Okay, so an Absorb's come up. So they only have 2 mana open. Now we actually have Tiamat online. So go ahead, now seems like our window. There, is a way they could counter it with like Essence Scout or something like that, or Jwari Disruption. But fortunately, it resolves, and this is massive for us. Now it's effectively draw 5 dragons, and so we have to look through our toolbox and just try and find the ones that are most troubling for control. And so definitely get Niv-Mizzet, Parun, Ebon Death, Draco Lich, Korvold, just a whole suite of them. So Niv-Mizzet can't be countered. Ebon Death can return from the graveyard. So that's sort of what's going through my mind, is picking the dragons against this matchup. So this is a massive, massive turn for us. Not only to get the 7/7, but refilled our hand. So opponent is stocking up on spells. They got Divide by 0 and Absorb. So we know there's going to be a lot more countering happening. At the same time, we're we have massive pressure with Tiamat on board now. All right, just thinking about sequencing. Yeah, so, if we're trying to think, I've already seen Shark Typhoon from them, so sort of want to, send the smaller creature at Narset, but they might just eat it with a shark. Okay, yeah, so anticipating that, I really wanted to just kill Narset, send both creatures. Okay, and so opponent just lets it go. Now what do we do? Okay, so ultimately, and this is part of the reason why I grabbed Ebon Death, is that we can just pass the turn and force them to respond on their own turn. Okay, because Ebon Death has flash. It's part of the reason why I picked it against this matchup. Okay, so the opponent did have the shark, did not decide to try and snipe Paradise Druid with it. Probably feeling the need to counter something after that. So this battle is just be like applying enough pressure without overcommitting, because we know they have rafts. Now, Ebon Death is a very resilient threat, so very happy to throw it out there. Like, if they counter it, we just bring it back later on from the graveyard. So opponent's thinking about what to do. And it feels good to still have so many dragons in hand. Okay, so decide to go ahead and use Spitflame here. This is not a useful card in the matchup. And here it has a limited use of clearing the way for blockers. I would love if they countered this, because it's a spell that has recursion built into it anyway. So opponent's considering what to do. Okay, and so they do counter it. So very happy to see that. That is not a spell we care that much about. And that allows this interaction right here. So we attack with both. They want the shark alive to trade with our Draco Lich, which it does. But Draco Lich can be recast in the graveyard anytime a creature's died, including itself. So we just play it again. And this is why I picked it in this matchup. Just the resiliency, just to cause the control deck some trouble and just force them to use a lot of resources to deal with this singular card, while we still have a stocked hand. Okay, so the opponent does decide to buy some time, bounce on the stack with Divide by Zero. Let's see which lesson they get. Now, interestingly, they did not grab a lesson there. They used the rummage mode as the alternative to learn. So, maybe they could have grabbed like a mascot exhibition or something. So it's very interesting. They did not learn anything there. Okay, so would have loved to get more lands just to help us unload our hand, but we, not going to complain about more spells in this situation. So do get a direct hit with Tiamat. Now the question is, what do we follow up with? We could do it like another on their end step, cast Draco Lich. Decide now seems like a fine time to run out Korvold and just try and maybe draw into a land. Now, maybe I should have done it ahead of time. Yeah, so you see me flip on full control right there. It's because in response to Korvold's trigger where he has to sacrifice something, I want to make a food token. So that's what I do right now with Gilded Goose. Make the food token so I don't have to sacrifice anything more valuable than a food token. We're ignoring the Spitfire right now. spit flame, I should say. So waiting to see what the opponent does. And there's a reason why it takes them a while. You'll see in a second. Sublime Epiphany with a lot of modes. Okay, so for some reason they bounced the Gilded Goose. But I guess they didn't want us firing off Tiamat again. As far as deciding what to discard a spare Tiamat and the Dragon's Fire. Don't anticipate needing it that much in this matchup, especially when we have all that on board already. Okay, so opponent farewells, gets rid of our dragons and our orb. All right, plays Field of Ruin and decides to upkeep Field of Ruin us. So opponent has undone a lot of our mana through their series of spells. Here, they're using Field of Ruin. I'm just checking the colors we have. And I think despite checking, it choose the wrong color anyway. Go ahead and grab a Swamp. Not sure if that was the most necessary. I think I was really trying to make sure we had the double black for Draco Lich. Okay, another land is great. Decide to I'm trying to decide what to play. End up deciding to play Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Just allows us to get another card out of their hand, just keep depleting their resources. Okay, so they have a land. They were anticipating that happening, and then we play a Goose. So already setting up nicely. We can even run out another Tiamat next turn. Okay, so Elspeth conquers death. Clean answer to Nicol Bolas. The opponent is just running out of resources. Okay, you have options. Can just run out Tiamat. Decide Goldspan Dragon's nice for two reasons. It can, it can apply hasty pressure to them while helping us further develop our mana. So ultimately, just play the Goldspan. And, if Goldspan hits now, 2 more hits from Goldspan, they're dead. Not to mention the treasure production. And you could see that thanks to Goldspan, we now have active Ebon Death Draco Lich. Okay, so opponent's in bad shape. If they're doing upkeep Castle Vantress, they're desperate, looking for some sort of answer. So bottom 2 cards, and they still could fire off like a Wrath here if they scryed into one. The opponent just plays the land, passes. Thanks to Goldspan, we could play Ebon Death. And they just scry again. So opponent is done. All right, next game. Now this is a somewhat sketchy hand. If there was one fewer Goose, I don't think I would keep it. But any sort of lands, and this hand starts looking pretty great. With like an early Nicol Bolas plus Dragonfire. Okay, so still unsure what the opponent's playing. Not a typical card you see in Angels, the selfless, what's it called? Selfless dog? Selfless something? All right, Elite Spellbinder. Okay, so they're going to get to tax away something in our hand. Thinking about what they would choose, and yeah, Nicol Bolas seems like a good choice since we're fairly close to casting it. Okay, still no lands. That's pretty agonizing. So it's a tough question. Like, do we cast Gilded Goose and like Orb of Dragonfire, or do we fire off Thunderbreak Regent to start blocking? Ultimately decide they're going to start smashing us for a lot of damage, so go ahead and decide just to cast the Thunderbreak and try and play some defense. That might have been a mistake there. Maybe it was still time to develop our mana, especially with us not drawing any lands. And you'll be able to see right here that it backfires horrifically for us. They have a very clean answer with Skyclave Apparition. Take a bit of damage, but we're not pressuring them at all right now. They don't care about that. And it allows them to develop their board and smack us for 4. All right, still no lands. And yeah, so we're in trouble. Decide to try and get a blocker by blowing up the Skyclave. However, there is a problem with that plan. I had forgotten about their Selfless Savior, and so that saves the Skyclave. That was a pretty bad play. I think it would have been just much, much better to get that orb out there. And I should have anticipated that. So that was a pretty big mistake. And we could see the game sort of slipping away from us. So another Skyclave to snatch our only consistent source of mana. And we're in big trouble. So another Goose. Now, we could cast the orb, but it would use up the food, and so it's just not a great. If these were Birds of Paradise, we'd be feeling a lot better, but it's not great right now. So, still soldiering on despite things looking bleak. I was hoping maybe Crux of Fate, but as you could see, like there's no way we could cast it unless we had 2 more foods. So, game's already effectively over. Have to, so we draw the Crux of Fate, but we have no means of casting it. And so, hang on for a little bit. We were using fast forward here to get through it, but yeah, we were already dead effectively. All right, next game. Oh, a bit of a slow hand. None of our many acceleration pieces, but we do have at least a turn 4 Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Possibly some good follow-up. So draw a Spit Flame. Okay, Seasoned Hollow Blade. That is going to start putting a lot of pressure on us. So trying to decide between, do we hold up the Spit Flame or do we play the Goose? Decide it's okay to go shields down for a moment and just play the Goose. And yeah, just play it. Lets us play our tap land. So now, if the Goose survives, then we have option for our 5-mana dragons. Okay, so that's a bad sign for us. Rafine, Scheming Seer is very strong. It's going to start growing. They're very difficult to deal with creature. So their Hollow Blade is already quite large. And it's just a tough spot right here. Like, do we play Tear the Peaks and pray that it survives for next turn? Problem is that Rafine, if it keeps attacking, it's going to keep placing counters. So it doesn't even, Tear the Peaks doesn't even block very well. Not only that, but get a little concerned seeing the vehicle they dumped in the graveyard, knowing what could be coming with that, the Sky Ship. So decide to do a before attacks, Spit Flame to take down Rafine. And it takes up basically all of our mana paying for the ward cost. Ledger Shredder is very powerful. Chart of Course. Now that's a very strong interaction right there. They get the Ledger Shredder and they draw 2 cards, so not feeling great about our situation. But right now, the biggest upside seems to be lead with Terror of the Peaks and hope to follow up with the large dragon, start shooting down their threats. At this point, decide to pay for the Spit Flame, thinking we might need it to take down a Grease Fang or something like that in the future. So we're in a very precarious spot. Okay, opponent shocks in a land. Tenacious Underdog. And here comes Grease Fang. And this is the beginning of the end for us. And I probably, had I known what was going to happen, just conceded right away. But forgot that the flagship has the sort of like Inferno Titan, when it enters the battlefield and when it attacks. And so when I realized that, went ahead and conceded. And we jump into the next game. Okay, so it looks like another Angels matchup. So we go ahead and play Paradise Druid. Feels bad that we're, going second, and they're just getting to turbo out all these Angels. So already in some trouble with the assault they're laying down. So we have to see what their follow-up is. Bishop of Wings, that's a problem. So opponent's getting close to that critical life threshold where it activates the Anthem effect on Righteous Valkyrie. Now fortunately we do have an answer here. We do have Crux of Fate in hand. So the question then becomes, do we fire it off right now? Or do we do something else? Now land searching is getting a little tricky here since we're getting so many basics and we have such demanding color costs. However, decide that the best thing to probably do in this situation is to lead with Glorybringer, and then that allows us to get something on board, take down Bishop of Wings, and sets us up for a more powerful Crux of Fate next turn. It lets them commit to the board some more and lets us have something left over. Okay, so opponent finds Youthful Valkyrie, Speaker of the Heavens, and so the Wrath is looking a lot more appealing for us now because they've committed into it more, and now when we fire it off, we have a Glorybringer left behind. So select the mode, destroy all non-dragons. Feeling pretty good about that because no matter what they play, now we get to untap Glorybringer and take it down. So that's what we do right away. We exert it just to take down Giada. Now opponent is short on mana, otherwise they might be able to just play Collected Company and instantly recover from the Wrath. But it allows us to turbo out some mana creatures and a mana rock. So setting up for what looks like a very powerful next turn, or next couple of turns. So they have Righteous Valkyrie. All right, have many options here. We can cast any dragon in our hand. Decide the most powerful place to use Terror of the Peaks. That allows us to, say they play land, Collected Company, or something like that. Allows us to play our massive 7-power dragons and just take down their creatures. Okay, so the life total's creeping back up. Now they attack here. I was very confused by this. They decided not to block because I was scared of what they might have, but I don't know if that was just a bold bluff by them or a mistake, but either way, we did not call them on it. So we had mana just to cast Tiamat, but then I realized we could go much, much bigger. If we lead with Old Gnawbone, that allows us to just really go wild. So go ahead and use Terror of the Peaks to clear the blocker. Attack with everything. Probably should have exerted Glorybringer there, but just missed that. But now we can play Tiamat, shoot down their, and so the opponent's seen enough. Okay, next game. Okay, so we have a very clunky hand facing Gigantha, which means it's likely a sacrifice deck. Yeah, we see the Epicure, which seems to be confirming that assumption. Draw the Gilded Goose right on time, turn 2. But do the more mana-efficient play, playing the Orb of Dragonkind. Yeah, so here comes Cauldron Familiar. And they're starting to chip away at us. So opponent's thinking. And this side just to crack the blood token, get rid of a land, find some action. Okay, so do not draw a land. So a little worried about what that means. Okay, so opponent is able to casualty out Ob Nixilis. That is a problem with us, having missed land number 3 and having a 0 power creature in play and no way to interact. So even though it's like a Punisher effect, when you have multiple Ob Nixilises in play, they can eat up your life total really quickly. So still do not find a land. However, thanks to Gilded Goose, Orb of Dragonkind, we can actually cast something. So the question is, do we play Nicol Bolas or do we play the Blazing Sky? I think it's Atsushi. So I ultimately play Atsushi because it has that powerful death trigger, and of the two options, we definitely would choose the one to make treasure tokens. So also played it because it has trample in case they have a flying blocker. To spare our life total, decide to discard the Spit Flame and then take the damage for the other one. So because this sacrifice deck gets lots of chip damage in, so you got to really be careful about maintaining your life total. Yeah, so here's another Epicure that dings us. Every single cat dings us. It's death by 1,000 cuts facing these sacrifice decks. Okay, so opponent's pitching away lands. Okay, so thankfully the dragon survived. And so that allows us to take some of the heat off of us by taking down one of the Ob Nixilises. Go ahead and just aim for the one with higher loyalty. Probably should have thought about which one was the real one, which one's the copy, in case they have another one. In that instance, it's better to kill the... which one is it better to kill? I think it's better to kill the copy because they have to sacrifice one of the real ones if it's left over. So opponent decides to make a devil token this time. And they're attacking, there are a lot of ways they could ping us, like Mayhem Devil and stuff like that, but we just got to keep that life total high, so we stick the bird in front anyway. Okay, so they play another Ob Nixilis. So things are getting out of hand. Was very surprised to see them not sacrifice the devil and take down our bird right there. I think that ultimately comes back to haunt the opponent. Okay, so we can see they're forced to choose between two of the actual legendary Ob Nixiluses. So they still only have two of them, which is good for us. So with their new copies, we decide to discard Crux of Fate. We're nowhere near casting it. And tough decision here. Do we discard? Do we take it? Decide to just take the damage. So because Goose is still alive, allows us to make a food token and have access to more mana next turn. So we fetch up with Fable Passage. So yeah, I'm very surprised they did not take the opportunity to kill the Goose. Now I know having a devil round helps, their Ob Nixilis upticks pad their life total, but we are not in a position to pressure them anyway. So Atsushi takes down another Ob Nixilis, and now we get to cast Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Tempting to pay for the Spit Flame there as a removal spell, but decide that our mana is so tight we need to keep that food token around. Okay, so opponent upticks again, and now we're at the point where we just can't go lower. And it's agonizing because we'd love to have all these cards. So ultimately decide to pitch Old Gnawbone because we're actually not far from casting Niv-Mizzet Parun, thanks to the Orb of Dragonkind being able to filter the forest we have. So opponent just brings Gigantha to hand, and we are somehow still alive in this. Okay, so Dragon's Fire is a good draw. So definitely want to kill the Ob Nixilis. So just think about which dragon I want to attack with. Decide to attack with the Ob Nixilis because the dragon I don't care about dying is Atsushi. So if they draw a removal spell and kill Atsushi, that's the one we'd rather have die anyway. So we leave it on defense. So opponent plays Gigantha, plays a land. And here's where this Dragon's Fire comes in real handy. Thanks to the other mode of it, we can reveal a dragon card and up its damage rate to be equal to the power of a dragon we control, or one in our hand. So go ahead and boost it up to 5 damage, take down Gigantha. It feels like we're stabilizing here. Okay, so opponent decides to just go aggro, send everyone in. Do not want to kill their devil or the Unlucky Witness, because if the Unlucky Witness dies, it lets them impulse draw 2 cards. Okay, so block in that manner just to not kill the Unlucky Witness. So here's the difficult part of the game where we're hanging on by a thread, it feels like, but we also need to kill them before they find something that finishes us off. So it's a question of how many creatures we attack with. Decide it's safe to send both dragons in because we can cast Terror of the Peaks. So we're just hanging in, operating off 3 lands, casting all these huge dragons. So we are getting so close. So that is a big problem. So Mayhem Devil comes in. Now, we have Devil Token, we have Unlucky Witness. Once again, do not want them drawing extra cards. Now here's a play I think the opponent missed. They were out for blood, so they went for a life total. I almost wonder if it would have been better for them to ping their own Unlucky Witness to try and draw more cards at the current stage of the game. So, hard to say, but that was a line of play that was an option there for them. So once again, deciding how to attack. trying to kill them as soon as possible, end up sending 2 of the dragons in, leaving the most expendable one behind, and then ending the turn. So there are options, like we can create a food with Gilded Goose, crack it to gain some life. There's risk to that because Mayhem Devil pings off us sacrificing our food tokens. So they go ahead and channel away, I think, Sokenzen, and send in the 1/1s. So our life total is just drifting downward. Okay, so once again, blocking in such a way to not kill the Unlucky Witness. But this is just a last-ditch effort for them, because you could see we have, opponents empty-handed, and we have more than 10 power of dragons in play. So it's academic at this point to just attack with all of our dragons and get the win. Okay, so that was 5-color Tiamat dragons. As far as the games, I think we went 3-3. Deck felt medium. We had some very brutal mana screw situations, and I thought we did very well despite that. So we'll have to see, what would happen over a larger sample size. But I think there's potential here. I don't know how amazingly strong it is, but it's just so fun. As far as the cards, I was very impressed with Glorybringer. Maybe should be playing an extra one of these. Also impressed with Terror of the Peaks, just being able to dish out lots of damage. Ebon Death Draco Lich was great against control. So it may be that we're a little too toolboxy and should add extra copies of the most powerful ones, like Glorybringer and Goldspan and stuff like that. Maybe even trying to lower the curve by making 2 copies of Atsushi and 2 copies of Gadrak. So there's some options as direction you could take this, but it was definitely fun and definitely very bombastic when you can, slam Old Gnawbone, then play Tiamat right after, and do all the fun stuff like that. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments what are your favorite dragons to play. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.